We did not arrest the dollar. We strengthened the CD to put up a good fight against the other currencies.
In some way, for Kwaba, Ibium Emma Jumadi so after set President His Excellency John Dramani Mahama Eko PMU Ewo Parliament na ode State of the Nation's Address Eko Tuda Echechemu de Ekoso Ewo Omai Ganam Aduma His Excellency John Dramani Mahama any NDC aban abo after set wo mo betena konwa no so no enkomo bebre e refreche e basto NPP and minority no wo mo gusua e din komo eno chi His Excellency John Dramani Mahama and NDC aban enkomodi ekoso a wo mo gusua e cheche Ghana for ma quick one yansan ko na hear this video be 2 minutes per and some mampani e to dwa any komoni bi na ekoba abusua information bebre and a wachi.
The heaviest burden we inherited was the very high inflation rate, which was silently eroding every household's purchasing power. It peaked at 54.1% at the end of 2022, and it declined to 23.5% by the end of 2024. Mr. Speaker, we treated this with urgency. Through fiscal consolidation, currency stabilization, and disciplined monetary policy, inflation fell from 23.5% at the end of 2024 to 3.8%. Mr. Speaker, inflation fell from 23.5% at the end of 2024 to 3.8% over 13 consecutive months by January 2026. Mr. Speaker, and very interesting, food inflation, which had been the main driver of the upward pressure on inflation, fell by 26.6 percentage points. Inflation for locally produced goods fell by 22.6 percentage points. Mr. Speaker, these are not just statistics. These translate into the reality of a parent being able to put food on the table for their children. It translates into the reality of businesses thriving and creating opportunities for Ghana's young people. Mr. Speaker, petrol prices dropped from 15.2 Ghana cedis to 10.7 cedis per liter. And only recently, it dipped below the 10 cedi mark to 9.97. Diesel fell from 15.4 to 11.3. And this brought relief to our nation's 3.7 million car owners and the tens of millions of Ghanaians who depend on transport daily. Exchange rate volatility has long been at the heart of hardship in Ghanaian households. We made currency stability a priority, and Mr. Speaker, we have delivered. Mr. Speaker, we did not arrest the dollar. We strengthened the CD to put up a good fight against the other currencies. Mr. Speaker, we did not arrest the dollar. We strengthened the CD to put up a good fight against the other currencies. And I'm pleased to report to this House that the CD appreciated by 40.7% against the US dollar and by 30.9% against the British pound and by 24% against the euro. Mr. Speaker, Ghana's economic turnaround is broad-based and comprehensive. all sectors of the Ghanaian economy have witnessed remarkable improvement in our first year in office. And most importantly, Ghana's economy has surpassed the 100 billion mark for the first time. And as I said, it is projected to place Ghana among the top 10 largest economies in Africa.
Okay, Commander.
Yeah, Director.
His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
Okay.
And say, Obe PM or my Ghana mua.
Yeah.
Adiachi, and so still, Ghana Fogusua e Tihon Komo after say, Mampeni, any state of the nation address, no, Eko Tuja. But then, video ya Eko Shei.
Okay.
And how catch attention.
Of course.
Mampeni John Dramani Mahama say, Woman said and $10 no.
Yeah.
No, almost 10 cedi no.
Of course.
And the cedi now air fighting against the dollar.
Yeah.
And almost sounds so bad to difficult economy. Inflation I was slow, be I was slow. But the same no can say, Mampenisi and Niama Abafo, my quick one. You can feel way.
Well, Director, a very interesting. Now, said you okay, you know. Director, in the State of the Nation's address, you know, a whole lot of uncommon course, but these are issues where a popping up, I catch attention.
I said, a month for say, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama.
Okay.
And more kid Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Well, Director, in some way, I agree. Because the UTM commander Mampenidi Yena, as way a bomb bina, and I say, block a 7 or 7 at 2 years, what punched Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Director, say, oh, Bobra, you make sure, say, what they are strength, obey him now, what they are bum. Now they are conquer opponent. Share opponent in weakness and was say, change and now, at the end of the day, who needs strength. Director, Mampenin Koma would be, Mamma started with scanning common, now for young Fadiakano, and because a whole lot.
But I'm son of Bahono.
Okay.
I NPP for so dim commerce. And command penny codino or parliament no bois.
Okay.
What say economy which are the man NDC abino.
Yeah.
Now a sweet. At the end is for Becassa. I will be inherited difficult economy or mobua.
Well, Director,
some before they can
NPP from Komomudi. There be a mechanism says, oh, quantity Pamianu, Quadia, only evidence if you are the bed, but Tiomi and Wasam, let can be fire dancing. Director, you must say NPP for any say, almost Rabbi Mono, not fully saying. Na cement you're saying, na exchange rate na at saying, na inflation you're saying, na omani ya bosi ya boyekano, na you're saying.
Almost as if Musa, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama said,
okay,
what from no cocoa, I say. And they say,
Director, more we are talking about a lot of indicators. It is a mama body. Let her do before body. Director, I don't saying, I one against more than 10. Oh, yeah. And a cocoa, they say, Koma, free Ivory Coast, in the last 24 hours, and say, Ivory Coast are buying. Take if another disease, Cocoa sister, Moto and Nubia, the Omuba Beteno, price of Muba Betono, a bear even lower than the year 2005. Yeah.
Cote d'Ivoire.
The right of Cote d'Ivoire.
Hey, Anna, yeah, 2005 years.
And he came a drew. But say minority for no. On for Cote d'Ivoire prices, no. And they are better to hear them say, and they Cote d'Ivoire so born on Madiban, and yet into a moment, yes, on could demonstrate, but a part of politics. Mampeni bedin komono say we a minority a the better unya sem bia beka fa mampeni ho mampeni ka projects or ka improvement or ka gains ya nya we a minority ade na abaye untimi nka wanu ntum at the end of the day you must say something anya sa unkrofo ni tifie omo twen say ade a mampeni beka yi monso mo me counter ma yentie the better ade na ade be counter aje say open propaganda we bi now the can sem kaka counter because mampeni here specific or ye emphatic say enei yenya a lot of gains into with exchange rate right obia nim say Ghana yo me ye kan yema bebrebe enti mampani ka tell say ya message na for to put up a good fight against other currencies enye dollar nkwa na you use the right amanfo kra nema wo UK amanfo ko dibia wo Europe amanfo ko China sa currencies na eno nso so enti say say no ko ye dia it will be able to fight against other currencies and that is why mampani nkomo ya odi yi a campaign message in 2028 against Bawumia oh right Bawumia say ono de o $2 let us only dollar nkwa ni deal oh yeah and president mama say ye must enough money to put up a good fight against all other currencies and tinya dollar nkwa na mampani chase no enti Bawumia o chase dollar bia eduru mre bi pounds na enam 21 Ghana cedis Nenam 18 Ghana cedis. Right, and nay pounds around 15 Ghana cedis. Euros no enam around 13. Nti etrese cedi na put a very good fight against other currencies and sign a chichire of mine. And nay with this. Oh, said I can't debt na ba form. Enti man pani koye no. Nkoma what you say against no nkoma na nkwese oh ye nya against keke ye buy ye exchange rate no ye boy homode nkoma mampani di no nkoma ni kire say gains na ye nya no enya effect e economy no so ama economy ni ayiye
nkoma manfo di say na dollar na ni titu NPP for no omo so dollar na swat no mfa so be na di abro man Ghana e na wo reply wo mo
director emfaso no na me ka kire wo mo say e 50 say dollar ne so tiye no Ghana ye kai dia kofom ye bobo sidi kakra bia no a ye de dane ko dollar mu a ye bebre ye timi di twa ye kanti na neyi in 2022 e ka MPP default to ye say ye kata maso si etua ye ni ka pride di kotua ye mpushi nkwose akire NDC abai president mama ba yi ebre ne so ye ne mpo otua ahead of time na time ne so yo wetime tua dollar na e ba fom na so mfaso ni bi no enei director share eniema prices director ye woniema de woniema da bia mekase say ye ka niema boa we should talk about major commodities ya enu ne kita ya ye daily activities ni eni hwa eni ho to say cement umpel cement a major commodity ya ehia uyifrima enye a control system fuel prices But I know about food inflation. Now, in the history of the Fourth Republic, I feel about food inflation. Etimi above from Payas half you. Yeah, man, Penny John Dramani Mahama buy. CD no, and I say food inflation a drop by 26%. Okay. And until now, big better. A big say. And more last year, and I say last 2 years, not all 1,000 Ghana, and they all 500. And 1 gallon, and not all 1,000, 1,002, and they all 450, 500. Okay. Now what do you say? Say a nay, you can say CD not a wire ding, economy na ya, and reflected, dear beam and reflected. The right out did send us cement over 100 cities, and the cement in a bono about 70. And nay, na ammonia, one bono cost a swati, fuel and I told 1 liter around 15 cities near the right, and therefore 1 liter 11 cities near the 12 cities, 10 cities. The right now catch me say, and reflect ye yam faswa, na a trese, we ye ignorant, unim dioka. Say unim dioka, you will agree, say, and you know, cry at the end fan of to be better, and near my way a swati. The writer for the first time, that Ben, I would say, a month for me into business, and the creator Babonti say, ye better and near Masu. Say car dealers Babonti say, ye take out 15%. Azumi say, Omukano Manotra. Tempo motis 15%. When was the last time I say, Ominya confidence Babonti say, ye better and near Masu? When was the last time? But these are certain things that a for nature say. Mampani State of the Nations address or koye you know. Among for the Kayan Wabonti that Amano. Oh,
and the commander purchase His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Nan keniso hard who crack in parliament kasa. Tabi Ghana fire the number
Ghana fire State of the Nations address. I'm a mampani that neni so hard who because say nay obiti come na okwa mampani ti come okwa parliament house no otwamu ehu fuel stations no omo prices are ededa so mampani na hu de bo ne tie enti omo aye State of the Nations address on fuel akire mu se bo no so wate reta wo de no to nchen a omo to ammonia anwa no prices na asesa omo so aye omo State of the Nations address no eswate cement for no okwa omo aye board de sisi ho prices no eswate State of the Nations address be ne chewi enti at the end of the day the writer said mampani kwa address here say okọ ena me fa ne say wankọ na enye yi na at all cost e wo say okọ dia the writer mampani kwa ene dia wo say oye nyina ne enei me baba address wo man no say ona mabonten a de Ghana for no atwatwa ba bonten concerning anima prices omo tu kwan say de enne exchange rate ni say no the writer mu nyina no so na mo fa conclude be economy na duro after in terms of project utisi abonten a wo hwe say the road construction Ghana region bia mu contractors wo kwan so na ye adwuma that is the state of the nation o man ye tebia nyina no writer enwa no na kama mpani adwi
na eze wo rosa aban no eya Accra to Kumasi road.
Yeah.
The same no ka say eso ye busy.
I busy.
Omo ye kwan den one more kind no. Sa pokuase interchange na.
Yeah.
Na kwa kufuado eja ho no. The same no ka say adwuma gusu ayekoso.
Of course.
Enkan to wa fan kan to Kumasi road no.
Yeah.
Wa obedi hu adanse e.
Okay. Director, very good.
Adwuma gusu ayekoso.
Adwuma na ene unim. Aha na mampani. Director me jinidi. Unim say na amanfo adwe yo mo say Accra Kumasi road no obejai because of express road no nti utie de na asenso bo akyem ka asemampani enya de a obetoa so aye Accra Kumasi road no but okoye address no me the way because of nkomo awudi unim say expressway no ye be interchanges mako 8 ewo express way no so enti emfra kra medru Kumasi no ne ye interchanges mako 8 ewo express road no so upon all this na menim say Accra Kumasi road because me mfa so enti na menim say construction gusu a etumrika gidigidi at the end of the day this is how I oman.
Okay.
About Ghana by beer than a construction site. Every region be a becombiano. Who say a man for quine swa, ye quine, ye concrete, ye petty abo, ye quine Ghana for. Right to send your build woman within a very short possible time. Ube when a beer, ye the Hokikan way ya shema, ye ya quine. Then we move to a beer health. Yeah, health. We move to education. The writer ASI, no. The writer Mampani, he's so good. Obon homework.
Now, Commander, you could take video imra.
Okay.
Afenyo Markins and Crude for so TCH. Now the area Koma or Mudi, get to every 1 minute.
The 30 tons of gold that we accumulated, they have sold all the gold in the name of diversification. How do you diversify when the gold prices are at all times high? How do you say you are diversifying by selling your gold for cash when there's a time to keep your gold? Again, policy inconsistency. That notwithstanding, we think that instead of the president taking credit for it, he should give the credit to Dr. Bawumia. What belongs to Bawumia must be given to him. You cannot criticize an individual on a campaign platform only to assume the reins of government and implement the policy that you criticize.
Minority leader. Afenyo Markins, woman dinkomo. Na ese woman komo na yemienu. Woman so His Excellency John Dramani Mahama emfa credit. Emma Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Afen so woman say mampani John Dramani Mahama ne na aban. To Ghana gold ni nyina. I gold wa mfa se wo mu gya ho. Ene de NDC fo so asade aba be kan ho no. Wo mu ton ni nyina. E ho no me nti ase.
It started from gold, no?
And he saw some coming to one.
Right, say Afenyo Markins politics ebekuno. Say your politics ne kunidia. Na na dwen awu. Right, nay gold bo could prices are ye who bid that ewiase. The highest prices of gold bo akko. And yet this time prices away. You are telling us say you will gold ni bebre good them. Am I entong? The prices no was through. Am I entong? The yen prices them from na yen ton na.
That is what also see. Reserves from Mudia Guho. And Tianisa buying a tongue.
What is the purpose of reserves? Me question no. Your gold na ye to go on. Ye to go to go say that chibia which buy a swa. Na ya tambia cotton. Say gold prices cost swa. Aye yesika na ya ton ye yesika the abeshe economy. Okay,
yenya I mathematics ke to be ewa.
Okay.
Say ebi wa say dollar no e from pa. Amount for Timisha $1 ni be good them.
Yeah.
Enti every time you know na dollar na cost. That time na also utilizing na $1.
No.
Dem cho what you see.
Asem ni nyina no no.
Ana me fa sa de we so nya example. Me fa say wakoto goose. Ebi a entos ana say ade bi a ye die. Ade ni bu pa na okosto ade no a. Say ade no ye die a e wo say ubei ton. So wa ma me ya ton ye bedu time bi no. Ebesabu the right ama wade na kofom
yes I
it is a say ya gold ne boa ya din awo adwaman so no
yeah
this time na was ye ton na yenye sika bebrebe ene begu Bank of Ghana
Director Winim
ana
no kre NPP for we so nko ba ntima dwom ne makola na wo nko busa omo ton aburo no omo toto aburo ton no sade ye kikire o man na omo nkire o mo obisa aburo fo na aburo ba na ebu a na omo to de agu dem aburo bu okosoro pe na omo twe aburo ni nyina akoton na omo gisika ne bebre akogu dem aburo ni sa ebu a na omo sa akoto abegu dem enti enei gold ni boy din de ye to agu dem no ye nton ni sika ne begu Bank of Ghana na ye nya a lot of foreign reserves, a lot of foreign currency no na yemfa ngu ho enti yewie na ye osika ne da ho na gold boyefo a the better ye wo sika bebre egu Bank of Ghana enti Bank of Ghana ti sika ne bi e dia toto gold no wo ne boa fum e wo Ghana ha ye mre
na we say no isim say NPP for no ka NPP for na enka ye gold no ho na say ne boy de beto anya sika che nko mekwa kwa bosia
Raja eho na nka me ba because the omo ka kire ye kire say ye wo gold no in abundance na gold na bioso na ne bo ne kwosoro mpo a omo nton gold no omo bekwa kwaje bosia na ye tia bosia no interest na ye ho kire yen na fe IMF any other international bodies control yen afa say obi ye business person na o sika o de ba invest o Ghana o see there be Ghana no debt prone bosia na se eka amne wo mo enti odu sika kochemu a ebehye gu oboboka enti obi enu ho de ne sika eba be bia adwuma ha na oman no yegu so esenke economy no na asen manyansa nkere wo se ye wo gold no ha gold no nsan wa asase nim recently the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources around 2023 and on Bekachara yen say Ghana yen assassin from coastal areas no ekosi northern Ghana by bia gold was assassin ye wo a lot of gold e assassin ma empo de yen tu ye no multiple times dudu ayetu no the right enti de kachara won say yen ton de wani bi na yen sika wi a na ye de sika no ye development na ye economy ni ye wi a economy na ye no gold no was assassin yemfa kwan papa so na yensan tu gold no ensa enti yetu a ebo no kosoro ebesa aton na de enti na yeto gold no Bank of Ghana this sike koto gold no na oto so the gold ni be decoration rota yemfa gold nya decoration yeto gold say ye ho kire ya na yeton it is the most valuable asset ayewo e wo Ghana na say biase sese rota NPP has a problem
almost say I Bawumia ideas no ase aban peso o jini nyina afa
Director, the Ben Bawumia, oye in charge of economy of Ghana. The Ben Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, now oye in charge of economic management.
Oh, sir, 8 years and MPP wa ban.
And yet the same microphone, ye kwatwaba, ye kachira omo say Bawumia as vice president, as head of economic management team, we go economy no omo say na na do na omma Bawumia kwa mani nya djuma. Bawumia na nu muton say na oye mate. Enyo no na control niema enti enei yemfasti ya ne ma no na afa die o me manage o me adwuma no enti adwuma enye wo na wo ye all of a sudden obi abeje adwuma na adwuma ni koyi a o si adwuma na enye wo na wo ye no yemfa ho credit emrew ade no monka say yemfa ho credit enkoma kenuforiata ne na dan kwakufuado because omo ayete ase say Ken Oforieta and no finance minister ono na o manage ye kan se atofo sin manage economy ni ye no kwadwo ponkuma be ka kire se ye nim se finance minister na manage economy no and ye blame Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and ye maye blame Bawumia enti enei se NPP for credit ya omon kan kire ye se ye mfa credit ni ma Ken Oforieta ne na nadan kwakufa omo mejira ho meka kire se ye mfa credit enkoma Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia on deserve any credit die no ye
asemu
what die no ye onei
so must gold for reserves no one na dey buy
na say gold Bawumia maye no na Ghana to gold dada NPP for ya na beka ye kwadwo pompo ne cooperative koka say ye fitly say ye to gold as oman say Bank of Ghana to gold agu ho no even ye shall say to gold before President JJ Rawlings 92 enti Bawumia na di gold to buy
eni asem no
the matter all my drain NDC for we na drain enye ye to gold na NDC ma power na MPP ma power and ye to gold wa na enei Bawumia baye no MPP to say de say be minority leader kan o ma dwene say gold no ye to a bo no kwaso kra ma ye nton meboa NPP for idea no and NDC for so idea ne say gold ne bo kwaso a ye nton over the kind of economy no na economy ni ye nti economy na ye a wo se hwan yemfa credit mo
Any asem.
and I go to Tonya when how to buy it was there. It has been in existence for years. The writer NPP for at this moment, am I confused?
Okay.
State of the Nation's address, you know, they believe say it is on the right track.
Okay.
Who said last year around June ho baby man pani beka say oh o man a senior kwan so bibi ekwerom so oboa yenhwe e artificial enye yie ebeje egu ene so muntimi nka say e artificial enye yie bi omu gidi sade na aye yie nemum de aka ne say ene yenhwe dan ka say yen ne yama ade na ye yie but in the last previous months no omu say o man pani boa we ye artificial e settings ebeje egu na nsenyan but say de omu ntimi nka say bi omu claim credit. Yeah.
Quick one, Commander. Yen too far because and what you know, Felix Ofosu kwa chinya butre.
Okay.
Ama wa cheche nsemu abusua. The way amount for asia tiade na se no esawani. Ense me ena me katonti yenya butre ni nya kunya na yenti nkomo a Felix Ofosu kwa chi ekodi na chi.
There are two more questions. I mean, me share president's speech now. Ofokose a lot more attention on the economic recovery and baby of fire economy ni free and nyame adum baby or the economy ne ababa bidu. Ghana economy is now among the 10 best economies in Africa. Baby of fire inflation free yeah baby ababedu yeah debt baby ababedu. When you hear some Ghanaians, I mean they may be NPP for, they may be neutrals, they may be whatever. Some Ghanaians say indicators when and reflect in omubotom and day-to-day nyoma boni adea. How does that make you feel, Honorable?
Okay, we all know for a fact that cannot be. Because you see, here in Nigeria, money, we all purchase items in Ghana. The entire APSA and what then? Now we need to get you on. Since I have to see them after the number buy and you can get tired of them. There are thousands of items. And then my son is just more. Again, same. So to say it does not reflect it, you must show. Say an overwhelming majority of them have not had it. That is not the case. You know for a fact, I know for a fact. Say there are thousands of items that have been used. Now they are making only. We know a matter of record because the NPP for any NPP for in Parliament, they are all on the state committee.
Yes.
Trade committee has summoned Guta before Ghana. Munkabomuku. Every sort of thing. Amount what they want to money must. Guta has shown evidence that it is part of the record of Parliament in the trade committee's report, amenity from that meeting, showing that the price of thousands of items have been used. What be your product? I know for the say a mobile, a brobo, a sambo, coconte bois, gari bois, sardine, semina, cement. Obi under NPP, cement never wants to 150. Me as a candidate, mayor campaign where I donated hundreds of bags of cement. I know. And then I still donate hundreds of bags of cement. So I know. Of course, so we share even the calculation of inflation, which means that the rate at which the price of goods and services increase. The reason why a bet from 23%, about 3.3%, let's say, I can not be a calculation. A majority of them have reduced in price. That is why it affects the beneficial numerator. So I can say.
Yes.
That is the only reason why the rate of inflation will reduce. Because the prices in the basket normally calculated. Many of the items will reduce. Of course, there was anthrophobia. Science is deliberate. The beneficial rent security. If I say, Obey na dey say on say ebo no so na we nya kwaso bebre ana say obey so bi betu o ma me ma nkato enne dokono ebro bo and MP 800,000 Ghana cedis look na 1,300 enne bedu Ghana ha ye to ebro 400 cedis a bag mo be na cedis and indeed me did say what say even ebro almost ebie ebro to ebro no air complementary price no will come to and I mean to know buying edifica 300 million because they were complaining that someone not of work despite the fact that one couple. And to say a book Obi, gas I would have been near Docono, Nebuaco. So we used to be dear cry, Nebuaco. On what basis would you increase the price of Docono Capital Road? In a sovereign or what about to Docono?
I just say we are open for so do.
Exactly, unless you are engaged in economic reality. And I open for what a broad else. Obi, make a thing. You see, I have information. They've got me the data of duty payment on imported items. Obi, cement.
Yes.
I'm the bank. I'm carrying 50,000 metric tons. And I saw 50 metric tons. China only payment.
Yes.
As of April 2025, and now see the lawyer 16.6 cedis to the dollar. Now the duty you pay on 60 metric tons of clinker, yes, I mentioned it. 16 million Ghana cedis. So what cost something that they will give you the data. As of December last year, now the same 60 metric tons of cement, clinker, I beg your pardon, yes, I mentioned it. The duty payments now up here by 11.5 million, 4.5 million Ghana cedis savings. It is almost like a cement so from 150, 120, 85. That is the reason. We know the cement manufacturer is passing on the effect to the consumer as they should. Obi, even whole car.
Asempa FM.
Toyota Corolla. A buana the corner money the back. Never say a home of a certain area. They are $20,000. So we calculate this year. Now $7,700. Multiply by 15.6. You are talking in excess of 116,000 Ghana cedis. See the number, they are 10.9. The same car duty payment is around 35,000 Ghana cedis. A reduction of almost 30,000 Ghana cedis. If a whole car war about for man, how does that to be? Obi.
Yes, but
it is not economic rent speaking. Obi, a coconut, chicken. On the bar, they bring it in 10 kilogram box. The duty payment for that will be a coconut. And then, who got the same thing. And yet, a boy, we are the person, you did it. It is a fact when I left politics. And yes, social media, you can't tell me when you're okay. Obi, I was saying, I will accept. Says that happy. It is a man beneath us. Gains now, it has translated. That is the honest truth. Except, for instance, if a transport union, what can I say? You see, also consistently by about 10, 11 times.
Yes.
Transport association, who are the official people, are almost paid transport, almost by 15%. And so, you have a problem of the if I could also say almost 2 or more. In fact, about 2 3 weeks ago, more reporting the GPI before almost 1 month ago, there's also fact. Actually, a minimum for charging arbitrary prices, which do not correspond to the cost factors that determine that a transport fee. If we abandon the media, was or yes to ensure that an imam abafom amagana war in a hotel. Abayay, or the American and now chicken, 10 kilogram packs of chicken. Now with the container, ma ebagana. A boa motono, $8,000 to $9,000. But I never said $90,000. Not due to Mutiano, $985,000 as of April 2025. By December that same year, now it's 985,000, about 707,000, a saving of 277,000. If you want would be the justification for increasing the price of imported chicken.
But that is where
in addition to this, you are finding a COVID led a few, which was 1% VAT.
Yes.
I find a couple NHI on your friend saying
NHI get fund levy, yes.
I find I have VAT restriction. I'm an effective rate levy 21.9%, about 20%. He led to crap on the whole. So that will bring us to the reduction in the cost what we know interest rate. Because a businessman, because of interest rate, it used to be around 30% and then it is between 18 to 20%. In fact, I know businesses that almost borrow as of last week at 14% from some bank. If in as far, or be better so after the
but and also now, because I remember say last Wednesday or so, no Tuesday, na mene MP Fakwetia was studio and we came to that same conclusion. Say yes, ocean macroeconomic indicators now are relatively very stable. Baby, I was say buffer, but neoma be bought on the market, no still relatively high. What then can government do? Say they can buy enough but if traders, car owners, drivers, mates, near the recalcitrant are buying by a day because a man for the effect of what government is doing on the macroeconomic side. Cost 90. What can government do?
I have already established to you.
Yes.
You can say it has not come down by the margin.
Sure.
That one I can grant you. But there can be no sweeping statement because that cannot be true. Of course, there are specific items here. The operators in the sector are being recalcitrant.
Yes.
But Obi, a bill of price control. Buying, now those days, Dr. Kusibo to your financial.
Yes.
Or back to you to read the budget. In the budget, was they see the price of milk, Milo, sardine, But Obi, that was then.
Yes.
The problem that arose at that time because of price control, they say, after traders, they began to hoard.
Yes.
To create artificial shortage. Drive price.
Sure.
Because trading is a predominantly private sector activity, are buying any movement. It is virtually impossible to create price control.
Yes.
Because people will simply hoard, especially in areas monopolies.
Yes.
What are you going to do? But competition, the fact that at the end of the car garages, almost the truth that say almost car also by 15%.
Yes.
Of course, they cited macroeconomic indicators. But Obi, you know that they are also getting stiff competition from high quality, cheaper Chinese vehicles. In the car and car at a certain price, I hear home use. With the car you will get a brand new Chinese vehicle of a higher quality. If they are forced to reduce their price, just as they are losing the market. So normally, economic is a competition. That's right, because the more temper, more raise a margin for advert and a live broker.
Yes.
Say our true essay, lab FM and I hit FM. Medical hit FM, ne lab FM.
Sure.
You will lose out if you will be compelled to bring your prices to that level. But the fact is that an overwhelming majority, thousands of items, but there are fewer. They are being recalcitrant.
Yes.
But I don't know. Eventually, it will obviously. I don't know if I met a AGI president last week. Or Kate, Abra ends before now a name of the factors of production and the prices, air cost from they incurred losses. Omobo cabin, even though prices went up. And it's almost just a Akwenya Kakraba, almost your Wakanaka Kra and Sana. Of course, it's not a tenable as you. But they acknowledge that the factors that should make prices come down having been taken place. Tell me the evidence somehow in the fact, in terms of taxation, interest rates, and the cost. Unfortunately, economy is import dependent. And you're using the Ghana and Yakra. The most sustainable way of addressing it is that they increase production. Now you have to say importation. So, but I know maybe a medium to long term objective, realistically speaking.
But a
impossible
about production, honorable.
Yes.
And I've heard the argument say one critical component of production cost, power. in the end we call TikTok and videos are young women, young men bebre na no sika omutua for power ebia ka nsuo and all of that ebia ka rent, and these are among for personal economies. They say these things are killing them. Honorable, cumulatively over the last 1 year, power cost, tariff cost are increasing by close to 30%. That is an issue.
Obi, truth is, to begin with, there's a recent problem. I hear a problem of recent weeks concerning the region of some meters.
Yes.
You cannot know your one-off situation and yet the norm. So we need to distinguish between that
FM.
and then tariff increases in general. So as I say, ECG, in fact, Ministry of Energy, I can say, abnormal meter readings, you know, my ECG 7 days, they should resolve it. I'm sure that in the coming days, they will find a solution. There's even talk of their parents saying, holding people accountable and all that. You can know. And then there's the issue of tariff adjustment. 30%. Mind you, under NPP between 2023 and 2024, almost to power boom by 52%. Sometimes I hear them complaining, say I told the electricity tariff, but their record is that they increased it 52%. What happened? They say, Obi, as part of IMF conditionality, because they have run down the economy, no more here IMF intervention, desperate to implement. The IMF said, hey, there is long-standing under-recovery in the energy sector. Just a boa, and a car yabo, see a day name Namadeno, see a photo in Namadena. Yes, it's a dead piano, my naboka. It's a was buying a year the effect of subsidy, or this is the source and sign up. Yet to me, a photo. If I'm an okasi, I feel the shaft here, I sign up with the shaft here. Not easy, Omabokadena. Because there is what is referred to as energy sector financing support. In the last year, OSHA budget, 2025 budget, more. Finance Minister HSK 27 billion to pay for the shortfall. This year, 15 billion to pay for the shortfall. If the IMF catch the NPP are buying, say, moon to me for some account and expect to make adequate recoveries for electricity generation. Now, the more we work on, the more it worsens your financial situation. Problem maba say ye more monamo solve no. Moon to me free. You must agree to quarterly tariff adjustment. Any major tariff adjustment, quarterly tariff adjustment, to recover costs in terms of inflation, the cost of production, exchange rate movement, and the effect. And there's a fourth factor, almost generation mix. Depending on what you are using to generate power, and how much is possible. What do you need, for instance? So, a year hydro power contribution, it lowers your production cost.
That's true.
As against
thermal
production. No, so we use gas, or something that we use light crude.
Yes.
So depending on the mix, you know, make sure you price the electricity such that you're Sabeka. It's empty to and on the bank I said around September, October, a year last year. I said the major tariff adjustment. And the basis is asset improvement. In other words, a year capital expenditure, Chika, UCG, any other power players, spending to procure machinery, any other to generate power. And see a Yesika, you debate here no car. Then no sign and a buying foot to create further homes. The NPP agreed to this. Indeed, in 2023, Kanofayata, only a major price increase there. Kanofayata himself said it was because of the IMF agreement. All the IMF so only government and the business, so not political party. If one government binds the government of Ghana to an agreement, I want to make sure we people. Martin Ebinamaka say, adjustment does not mean increase. Now, there was inflation about from CD rate across road, and a dollar about from Now inflation is lower, other than what they don't tell you, they say, who say, by presidential fiat, President Akufo-Addo say, they should not add the cost of crude to fire thermal plants to the tariffs.
Yes.
And that is a source of major under-recovery. It is a source of major debt in the energy sector. You buy around 80 billion Ghana cedis. And on my belief, you say, you try to buy 1.5 billion, which roughly should be around 15 to 18 billion Ghana cedis. In the IMF as a system, say the cost of crude to fire thermal plants must be added to the tariff. If you told it, so you can't get me in other tariff, so it will go up too much. If you hear D-levy gives about $500 million per annum. Out of the 1.2 billion that is required to buy crude to fire thermal plants. And also, for some reason, more of our generation of electricity comes from thermal sources. Into the other half, you must find a way to adjust tariffs to accommodate it. This is a binding agreement ended before a year with the IMF. In fact, it was the reason why a year $360 million. I think the second tranche under the IMF program in December 2024, just before our move power. So we are bound by the agreement made by the NPP. But you see, it is also necessary because we continue to incur unsustainable debt. A car, a bubble, in the electricity sector. But as for the runaway meters, for electricity air cost will be I am sure that in the coming days to be resolved. Now, Energy Ministry is following closely work being done by UCD to recalibrate the meters performance.
But Felix, all that then means because the IMF program would end this year by June or August. It is a year then you increment bill in tariffs if your argument that a MPP for idea almost sign you go with that. If that is to go by.
IMF only told the MPP to do what they believe was right in economic management. Because fundamentally, you see, the phenomenon petroleum sector. I'm saying one trade the year of petroleum sector. Unless they be petrol war, diesel war, a copy beyond a certain point. Then they could do 23 cedis a gallon and the NPP.
Yes.
But generally, say increase a marginal. A cost of marginal 1%, 2%. Now about from 1%, 3%. The reason is that as far back as 2015, they have full deregulation. President Foster say partial deregulation with the setup of the NPA. But under in 2015 and NDC, they have full deregulation, which made it possible for players in the sector to recover their costs. In these days, you hardly hear of any debt in the petroleum sector. The debt is clear because Okoto petrol back 1 cedi, Otonwa una 1 cedi, and if I clear there as a player in the sector. It is the right thing to do. And yes, at the Kabeba Amakano at the million, then we go into another default, which then causes us to face severe economic crisis. And the NPP. What is necessary? They say the price must be set. A journey the amount for that one will be resolved. But automatic price adjustment as a policy, I think that's a fair policy. But also, critically enough, government areas say will use more cheaper fuels. So that young craft food and the board thing, which then becomes a costly factor in pricing. In fact, say which year budget of 2026, any donation and that, can room, say the year thermal plants and air buying up to 1,200 megawatts.
Yes.
Because their consumption air cost. The sun into no LCS and what they go through at the Amagana. The 1,200 megawatts will rely on gas yes, is to build a second gas processing plant. IFN GPP2. And on that, we will get additional gas. The cost of running thermal plants are coffin. So no coffin. The one you have to crack. So that will naturally reflect in the tariff. So even if you do automatic price adjustment, the cost factor will be reduced in terms of year or how can see it is necessary.
I get you.
So we don't pile up there, which will come to haunt us.
Sure. I get your point, sir. Even without the IMF program, no, in principle, this is what this administration believes in. Say, in order not to pile debt, no, I will see a year quarterly adjustment in
that
tariffs,
is what
right?
has to happen. So quarterly adjustment will mean that it will bring the cost of generating electricity down.
Yes.
As and when there are marginal movements. You
can reduce it.
Last week, petrol 10 cedi. 10 cedi, 30% or so a gallon. And of course, by 1.59%.
Yes.
It is 3%. So, it will be 11. So it won't go up too much. It will more now. They are 9.8, 9.7 because the factors keep moving up and down. But they are always marginal. It is rare to see a major jump unless there is some major increase in the cost factors, which arise out of unforeseen developments. But any normal because of the policy of adjustment, it does not affect the pocket of the consumer too much. But you now say you pay subsidy. I buy share border. Okay, of the 3 subsidies. The last time I buy share subsidies now. Because invariably, a fee is something is not a mark because I'm buying a yes here. Then it creates a huge debt. It's even why should I know? Now you get 40-50% increase in tariffs. Now they are butchering up there down because I buy yes standard the day NDFC I'm not don't go abba because of the non-implementation of the automatic price adjustment formula. You see, that is what it is. First of all, a conditionality that the NPP agreed to. So, especially when NPP for beginning a platform so and complain, they are just being hypocritical. That is the bottom line.
The minority leader in the closing address, Neka, said, "Give to Bawumia what belongs to Bawumia," in reference to a new policy about Parliament from the Finance Minister, the Ghana Accelerated National Reserve Accumulation Policy. They argue, say, just rebranding of what Bawumia introduced, the Gold Reserve Program, and he really acknowledge, say, a continuation of a program you inherited from your predecessors. Why is it difficult for government?
There's nothing to give to Bawumia.
Hey.
The record is there. You see, first of all, you see, NPP4, they must take themselves serious and take Ghanaians serious. My name is our pointed question. Is it not on record? Say, Bawumia Kasa, any NPP4 better say, he was not the one running the Ghanaian economy.
Yes.
So how is it possible? Say, Nipa, now he was not running the economy, no, was the one who imposed gold for reserve on the government.
Certainly, your match said there are some policy interventions. The office now empower those interventions.
Obia almost say he was sidelined, and almost has happened. In fact, now Komia, now senior advisor to Bawumia, many national programs. So several times he is on record to have said to Bawumia, he was not the one in charge. It won't be in charge. But yes, you can impose policy on the same government. So they should make up their mind whether Bawumia was in charge or he was not in charge. That alone strips them of credibility in terms of what they are saying. Say, who was in charge of the depreciation of the dollar, of the cedi?
The depreciation of the cedi?
Depreciation, who was in charge of it? Who was in charge of the DDEP, debt default? One another in charge. Who was in charge of inflation rising to 54% and the NPP? Who was in charge of debt to GDP ratio going to 104% and the NPP. Would one in charge? But about gold for oil, yeah, Bawumia. Why would they deceive and insult Ghanaians like that? I don't know more idea. Why did they subject themselves to ridicule like that? He was not in charge. Or can't say more you Then when the same person was able to go to the Bank of Ghana and force them to implement the policy. And indeed, and not an answer. I raised it in front of me. Says our analysis, no, it was rejected at the polls. It will be rejected again because Ghana was said you cannot approbate and reprobate. Won't you mean can't say and say the also say the papa ba Bawumia na the bonnet you can't do that. If he obey Shia on Yashia, obey anyone on you. He was either in charge or he was not in charge. He cannot be in charge and not be in charge at the same time. So I must say. Number 2, Obi, the IBFA Central Bank, Eto Gold, for purpose of reserve, did not start with NPP. It is true that they bought gold, but it was not the first time in Ghana history Yato gold. In fact, the Washer analysis normally on the 8 tons of gold.
Yes.
The 8 tons of gold, Namibia Central Bank, and I Cote d'Ivoire Central Bank, and Ghana Central Bank.
Yeah, Ghana Central Bank.
So the idea that central banks keep gold was it about, can you say NPP and Bawumia idea? How is that Bawumia's idea? What because the 8 tons of gold number 2, where did they come from? Whose idea was it? Was it Bawumia's idea too? You see, what had happened was that now only deplete reserves. In fact, Bank of Ghana and Kasa Beka say over a 3-year period between 2022 to 2023, $6.2 billion and a fee on reserves. Because of the loss of confidence in the economy. Instead of they simply did not have forex to import crude oil and now to give to importers of crude oil to bring crude oil. If it were any say, Omone Obi as say, and you better go to the amount. Now we work a ton of money. What ton now yes, you cannot afford oil they are bringing. If I make it to be simple, Omo go to the command oil trading because they are bringing. No, Omo intermediary here. They are to go demand no afford not the dollars, no, Akoto oil the above, no, I didn't commission. That is what that was happening. And then, as time came out, investors wanted to take more of their forex out. But who will go down? What it does is that it gives investors assurance that we won't show now what $1 billion because gold is a precious metal. What can we turn in now? A bit to be a call. So let us put it on record. So it was not under NPP and a Ghana be kind. I told gold for the central bank. It is not true. So our propaganda number, and indeed, it will be challenged fiercely when the debate for the defense
on the SONA no
starts on Tuesday. We will self-note it. It will be fiercely challenged. As I make it is true. There was gold in the central government vote and SONA NPP back then. So it was not Bawumia's idea. In any event, 2020 manifesto of the NDC. We proposed the gold bond. What has happened was that NPP fought to gold and now only become, which was not the idea to begin with. But it was for purposes of reserve. But Obi, we have a bigger problem than just reserve. Exchange rate movement of Ghana, it depends on demand and supply, like any commodity.
Yes.
We need dollars say, so who will be the price will either remain stable or the cedi will appreciate. So who Libya, if the cedi will depreciate. I didn't see an normal implementing gold for reserve, any gold for oil. And yet the cedi went up to 17 cedis $1 to $1 a sample. So what was the outcome of our so-called policy? And our policy, it is for decoration. Gold now, almost say central bank toy, was it to decorate their votes? What was the impact of that so-called policy? Which I have established saying the buy. If indeed that policy was worth something on them, why did the currency still depreciate? When they say they had the largest haul of gold under them.
Yes,
so
currency.
The policy clearly didn't achieve anything.
Yeah, but the worst depreciation, no, your time hit is 17, somewhere around 2022.
At the time they left power,
yes.
in January 2025, the city was between 15 and 16 cedis to a dollar.
No, BOG now 14, like interbank rate now 14.
BOG, they advertise the rate in banks. They strike the average rate.
Sure.
But any bank because of the $10 Ghana. In fact, there are some banks that sell dollars higher than the BOG rate.
Yeah, but so for the purpose of argument, we should go with BOG.
Yes. Even if it was 14.
Yes.
Me, I bought dollars for foreign goods and then January 2025, December 2024, and the account. But even if we use 14 cedis, what the dollar to just around 4 cedis in 2016, 2017 January, it could do 14 now. Meanwhile, I will say you have implemented gold for reserve, gold for oil, and yet your currency can depreciate. In fact, almost they started adding to the gold reserve from 2021.
Yes.
And yet, we need to meet for 14. Obi, as of 2021, now it was 6 cedis to a dollar. That was the exchange rate. As of 2021, now CDS 6 cedis to a dollar. Yet, between time, almost on the gold for oil, no gold for reserve buying. The city went to 14 cedis at the interbank and 16 cedis on the forest market. So what was the impact of our gold for reserve policy? Number 3, Obi. We said, say back, the gold border really embedded. The problem was that gold that you choose Ghana have time. Now you understand can't you create mobile na. Because of that problem, now it was due to smuggling. So it said a binum area of a cotton gold money. Numbers can go to meeting. We set up a regulator on no pen or own coin to say the cocoa bot here. Set of them market down and gold. And then we put in place laws. It criminalizes smuggling and efficiently regulates the sector. And at least you say between 85 to 90% of gold that you choose Ghana now you can buy a bank city. And we see what as of 2024 gold that NPP before
FM.
Last year, gold bought made about 106 tons of gold, and the cost one on it buy it, and they got up to $10 billion in forex. Bank of Ghana, me a ton de man, you pay here forex to stabilize the currency at around 10.6, 10.7 as of the end of 2024. I never at a surplus. The NPP didn't do that. They simply didn't have forex to give. In fact, I am afraid the about to so said they should not touch the reserves. You see the problem? They say so our reserves now would deplete to support the currency and the problem. IMF my requirement say we needed to add $400 million to a year reserve by that in a year. Obi, you to make the $1.4 billion second and maybe coverage. So we were not depleting the reserves, we were actually increasing the reserves. And at the same time, we have forex liquidity to intermediate. If you have GCD, a free, almost $1 through office by the Bank of Ghana. That is why it's major. So, any time before the car, some no one, they be a bomb in control. So, you should diligently inquire into claims made by politicians. And the 8 tons of gold, which meant that the central bank was accumulating gold. And
but Felix, on that score, no even if since independence till time or mobile, na 8 tons na newo. Now within a space of 4 years, omutimi a ramping up, Emma it could do 31 tons. You cannot discount that. It's something you have to give them their flowers.
You can also not say it was Bawumia's idea. So you to go to the central bank. How? And I said the idea said central banks can add to their reserves through gold accumulation. It is not Bawumia's idea. You must accept that. Because who buy and do it is like, say, saying, you do the program for about 4 hours from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6:30.
Then you extend it from 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock. Then you can say, saying it is idea. You have more hours to educate listeners and do programming. But it is not your idea. In fact, saying, when unfortunately the late Kaba is free.
Yes.
And I'm one.
Yes.
Can you say when I do this and buy?
No.
No. That is all. What they say is that it was Bawumia's idea. Central Bank of Ghana should buy gold. Or in any event, which major central bank doesn't have gold event? In fact, last week in Sky TV, they were permitted to enter the Bank of England votes. Bank of England in almost 22,000 bars of gold in their votes. 22,000 bars of gold in their votes.
Yes.
Even Ghana, your gold bars and other countries. Because they keep gold bars for other countries.
Sure, that's true.
If England is keeping gold, India is keeping gold, Fort Knox, America buying gold, Australia will gold, South Africa will gold on the vote. How do you say that about Bawumia? How? The principle says gold can be used as a reserve. How is it Bawumia idea?
Okay.
The same man, I must say, economy no only motion. How is that even possible?
Very well. Felix, not me, but this final question. One issue, me TM debate ne eba up, and it's the Bank of Ghana account say be 18 tons out of 31 tons na ewo hono. They had to sell it. Na yen take advantage of windfall gold price akostrono e de ebemayen asomai. Why would the central bank do that to reserve ewo and then turn around to bring a policy intended to still increase in reserves? That incoherence, why? The minority argue.
Obi, reserves are not only kept in gold.
Okay.
Your current reserves are actually, it is foreign currency. In the Bank of Ghana, Mahama abrochesi car, a war abrochesi bank, so that if they need some to give to players in the economy, there was a car, you can do it. So you can keep it in gold. So we here physical cash, you can sell. And as you can keep it in physical cash. But you must balance it and you have to portfolio management. Because gold is a volatile commodity. And then you buy an of around 2,000 times in the boy.
That's true.
And then it's in excess of $5,000. And I'm a boy. It can come down. It is a what gold baby over 40 times more. Now, Ochina, a buono, a stable company, you will lose. If a woman is no, I have too much gold. My main told me, I'm saying yes, car, a good reserve. But then there were $13.8 billion in reserve, and then we have about 20 tons of gold. I see that one area, we may even get the 18,000 because the mining company, they are obligated to surrender a certain portion of gold to the central bank. They may also get some from artisanal mining. So they will build the reserves again. But they balance their reserves, part in cash, part in gold, because unfortunately, gold is a commodity that is volatile. In fact, in the last few weeks, there was a day gold was extra by about 5% because of one action of Donald Trump. Trump called Venezuela. Gold work also.
Yes.
The following week or so, a time back from. Apart from one, you will lose money. If it's a Bank of Ghana, no analysis. No more share no. The one the net a four for my own message. The end told the unions can do. Not Yankee in gold. It is just for there is nothing wrong with it because a speculation. Obi a pure speculation. So we see a year, a cost we see a year before, and we've seen it in cocoa. Cocoa, there was a timer, now it's $12,000 a bag, the one. And then a year trade under 3,900 or so. I'm a Cote d'Ivoire, so there are reports say almost on producer prices to reflect the movement. So there is nothing wrong with the portfolio management decision of the central bank. It's a standard practice. Some countries may decide. So they will ramp up gold production. another country may decide. So many are going to almost Danny BC can move one to okay. Nothing wrong with it. But the central bank will get additional gold reserve this year because of the arrangement they have with the gold mining company. So there's really no problem. And I say, yeah, Yakoto gold, no, and Sikano, the money has not been expended. Sikano will be a reserve to shore up our reserve to ensure that we have liquidity for foreign exchange. Whereas the gold board arrangement, you know, and also foreign liquidity to put onto the market. And now, Finance Minister de Gan Rapaba. Or say, yeah, by 2028, Yebenya gold, Yebenya a year reserve, a vessel 15 months of input, which will be the highest in our history. First time, 11 months of import cover. This is sound, our currency will not depreciate. Obi, Mamenka, you know, I know, Obia will see me. Say Ghana, so we a car, apart from debt. The biggest problem of our economy is currency depreciation. In fact, Bawumia Koya, we body do say your money for him. And you know, in a Central University 2014, say the best indicator of proper economic management is the exchange rate.
Yes.
And that if you are in doubt, check the exchange rate.
Yes.
Only one can have money. If a government comes now kill exchange rate, about somebody, which translates to the alleviation of taxes now war under NPP. Is it not worth pointing out? How can the same party flag dispute the very thing your flag has? How?
Felix, Maminas will wait for the debate to start on Tuesday, God willing. Now, I
will participate actively in the debate.
I can see that. I can see how fired up you are. In the ever say, Ekohiasi Ebesia Dinkomobiwa, Yebesaya Kasa. Why? Menso meda sepa Felix Ofosu Ekasa Emma Omampenyi John Dramani Mahama